We on, right? We're good?
Yeah.
All right, I was kind of under the impression that you picked your own theme songs, and Josh says that's kind of a pain in the ass, so we don't really do that anymore. Fortunately, that was in his catalog of songs, so heard that on the radio the other day, and for those of you who don't know, it's a band called Collective Soul, and the title is called Gel. What we're all here to do is to bring each other together and then gel as one big unit by the time we leave here. We've all got the same message. I hope we're all out here with the same purpose for what we do. And we come together as a family to just get better and better at communicating, because that is the weak link in our profession, is the communication, not just amongst our clients, but amongst one another. Back in January when we went to Harold's afterwards, I was sitting with Jim and Babs, and I honestly was planning on taking this New Beginnings off because my kids are in soccer and flag football, of which my wife has now recruited me to be an assistant coach. So nobody stepped up, so I got into that, and my son plays early Sunday morning, so I apologize, I won't be here Sunday morning. But Jim says, "Are you coming in April?" And of course my response was, "Well, yeah, of course." He says, "Good, because you're speaking." I said, "Okay, great." I know Jim has heard me at Focus before. Many, many moons ago, we had a program out near Pittsburgh where I started in practice called Living Principles. Wes Trout was the gentleman who started that, and that was kind of like a precursor to what we're doing here. Many speakers, about 20 minutes apiece, boom, 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 give you some really good in short shots, but when you left there, you really had a lot of stuff to take home with you and keep you going. Because of Living Principles, I kind of took the bull by the horns, and I brought in some speakers like Will Tickle, Dennis Nicotto. We also had Bill Esteb come in. We've had Bill here. Bill's a very good communicator of chiropractic, very good at portraying what we do to the general public. We also had Sig come out one time, and all different people that I met through many different avenues. So a couple of people I've talked to before I came up today, the hardest thing when you've been in practice, and I'm going on year 31, and it's what don't you talk about? When you've got 31 years of stuff, and if you all go, and I mentioned this so many times, go back into your cabinets, go onto your bookshelves. You don't need any new material. If you've been in practice 10, 15, 20 years, you've got it. It's there. You paid for it, you bought it, you stuck it on a shelf, and now you got to come here to try to keep getting back on track. But the track is there anytime you want to get on it, so don't hesitate to use that. My PowerPoint, I have never done a PowerPoint before. I kind of kidded my wife. I said, you know, I'm going to put like 3 pictures of the kids up and say this concludes my PowerPoint and then just talk. But I felt the need, since I had some history I wanted to share with you and things you can kind of relate to. That's why I try to relate to people to make you realize we're all the same. Doesn't matter where you came from, doesn't matter where you're going. We're all on the same path together in this life. So I want you to think back to, well, however old you were, when you had your first hero in life. We all have that first hero, whether it be sports, entertainment, something along those lines, somebody that we admired for whatever reason. And that way. This guy, I'm a big race fan, those of you who know me. I've been going to dirt track races since I was really, really little. Flemington Speedway was my stomping ground when I was a kid. I used to make my parents, well, I didn't make them, I suggested that they come home early when we were on summer vacations instead of coming home on Sunday, to be home by Saturday night so I could watch this guy, Gerald Chamberlain, race. For some reason, I took a liking to Gerald, not just as a driver, but as a person. And I didn't know him that well as a little kid. But Gerald was one of those soft-spoken guys. I don't know if you can tell, but he's actually wearing loafers right now in the pits. That's how laid-back Gerald was. He's from Everett, Pennsylvania. He was a farm boy. And he did all his talking on the racetrack. And I appreciate talent in a race car. And if you've ever seen a dirt track race, they're mostly on 3 wheels, the left front tire's off the ground a lot, and they're skating around there. And it's really something to watch, for me. So, over the years, because I was a racing enthusiast, Gerald was one of the only guys that drove Ford products at the time. Ford was out of auto racing in the early to mid-'70s. I've driven nothing but Ford products, and it's because of him. I don't even know why I still do. You know, I mean, I'll drive somebody else's Mercedes or something, don't get me wrong, but I go buy Fords, that's just me. And then eventually And again, these are scanned pictures this is my first attempt, so bear with me. But this is a shot in Victory Lane. I had a few Victory Lane photos. I put them right there at my front desk because I'm proud of them. That's a big accomplishment for me, along with my chiropractic office. But these are some guys. The guy in the middle is Keith Huffman. He's one of the best drivers in the Northeast. I helped his brother Doug out, who has one of the most winning records in the Northeast over the years. And one time, after I went to a gathering seminar with Sigafus, I knew when we came home that Saturday night that we were going to win that race. And you all know when you get that feeling and you know something's coming, and sometimes you don't know what it is, but you know something big is coming. And I was in the back, and I'm usually joking and cussing and carrying on with the guys, which is one of the most fun parts about being in a race car hauler. And we're on the way to the track, and I was just kind of quiet back there. And Keith's kind of catching up from the week, and I was like, we're going to win this race tonight. I just know we're going to win this race tonight. And let me tell you, it wasn't easy. The legs were shaking. By the last 3 laps, the handling started changing, the car started going away, but we won that race. And I knew that. That's how you can be in your practice a lot of times. But you have to be clear and able to receive that. In order to do that, you need to cleanse yourself of all the outside crap. See, we not only need to cleanse our physical bodies, but our spirit and our emotional self is oftentimes the biggest roadblock in our lives, in our career, with our friends, with our family. And you need to take time to work on you. You spend so much time on all these other people. You know, Brad Roush, last time he spoke here, and he was at Sharon Gorman's last Focus seminar, most of you know his story. Everything in the world, material you could ask for, biggest practice in all of Vermont, and the guy had severe depression and almost committed suicide. Why? Something was missing. There was a missing connection outside, and things weren't able to flow. So we need to keep that flow going in there. My journey to chiropractic school, I'm not from a chiropractic family. Long story short, when I was 5 years old, I had bad headaches. My parents took me to a chiropractor. My headaches went away. I felt better, and they never took me back because the doctor didn't tell them to bring me back. So I didn't go back. So when I was in my teens, I had a lot of sinus and allergy problems. So when I was 16, had trouble working at my job. And I worked at Welsh Farms. Those of you local know about Welsh Farms ice cream products. Best in the state of New Jersey. My dad worked for them for 50 years. You don't hear that too much anymore. He did a lot of research and development on those products. So I went to his chiropractor because he told him how bad I was with sinus and allergies. I got adjusted, and everything by the next day was about 75% better. And I just went back because I knew it was better when I went back. And this guy didn't really even educate me either. But then I told him I was thinking about being a chiropractor, and he was a Palmer graduate and told me to go to Sherman. Thank goodness he did, because at the time, you know how these schools work. It's up, down, up, down. Sometimes this is the place to go. Sometimes that's the place to go. How do you know? But when a Palmer guy told me to go to Sherman, I'm like, well, he must know something about Sherman if he's from this other school. So what do you do when you go to chiropractic school? Well, first, you should really call in advance and find a place to live, have an idea where you're going. So there was a list we had, and there was no email or anything. You know, this is back in 1985. So I get this list, and I go through some names, and I find some Jersey people, because I'm like, well, I'll find some Jersey guys, because I know I'll get along with them. And I called this guy, Jim, and he's like, well, you know, right now it's only like a week till school starts. We got a 3-bedroom apartment, and we got 3 guys living in it already. So you're welcome to come down and crash with us if you want. Put your stuff in the living room until you find a place for somebody else to live with, and, you know, no big deal. I'm like, well, that's very generous of you. Thank you. And my parents, I'm an only child too, so they got nobody else to worry about. So here I am, week before school. Where are you going to live? I don't know. I'm going to load up. This is my Ford pickup truck with the cap on the back. I'm going to put as much of my shit in there as I can fit, and I'm going to hit the road and head down Route 81 till I get to 85 and go to Spartanburg and see what happens. But after I left, I'm like, I got to call this guy Jim. So he's like, yeah, offer's still open. Come on in. So I take my bed, I take my dresser, and I dump it into what is the dining room area. He had 2 other roommates, so one Dexter, who I didn't have a picture of anywhere, another guy, Carl Demi. Carl is from, I think, Montclair somewhere down here. I haven't seen or heard from Carl in many years. Don't know what happened to him, don't know if he's even practicing. But the Jim I'm talking about is this guy. I don't know if you recognize him. That's Jim Hilston. Jim is no longer with us. About 5 years ago, he dropped dead of a massive heart attack at 55 years old. And we talked about that earlier. you can get adjusted till the cows come home, but if there's something else going on, you got to keep. I don't know that there was anything else going on, but Jim, I just seen him the week before too. We were down at a seminar down in Fort Washington with the Chiropractic Fellowship, and just happened to strike up a conversation. We lived 45 minutes apart, but we never saw each other. But a week later, our mutual friend Scott Schmidt called and said, our dear friend Jim has departed. And I was like, wow. And had just seen him the week before. Again, no accidents. Nothing happens by accident. We all know that. So the fact that I got that one last time, great. Oddly enough, at his funeral service, at a little gathering afterwards, another alumni of ours, Tom Faustino, was there. Hadn't seen Tommy in years. Tommy passed away 2 weeks ago, 55 years old. Heart problems, which he had had prior to Jim's service. So, you know, man, it's just another one of those examples. You don't know how much time you got. So what are you waiting for? And don't wait for that moment to find you. Go out and find the moment, because it's there. But you have to open yourself up to that and be ready when it hits to just go. There's a picture of Jim outside of Broadmoor Apartments washing his car. And that's him and me at my 40th birthday party at my folks' house up here in New Jersey, and a little memorial card that was at the service. So I didn't get to say anything at the service. It was a quick, sudden thing, and I wish I was able to speak a little bit, so this is kind of like my way of getting that part out, so I appreciate you listening. So then I get out of chiropractic school, and actually we were talking about this at lunchtime. Sherman had an extern program, and you used to be able, instead of your last quarter at school, you could go out and work in somebody's office who was approved by the college. So I went to this place called Laurel Mountain Chiropractic Clinic, and met this guy, Larry Wilkins. And Larry owned the building, although I was externing with another gentleman who was there. And Larry and I got to work together a little bit during my time there. And it was funny because I was just thinking, you know, I don't really know where I'm going to go when I get out. It's kind of like going to chiropractic school. I didn't know where I was going to stay. Now I know where I'm going to practice. And I had already planned on taking Pennsylvania boards, South Carolina boards. And almost that instant, Larry came out of one of the adjusting rooms, and I was there helping move patients around. He says, hey, Jeff, let me ask you something. Where are you going to practice? I said, I honestly don't know. I know my folks would like me to come back to New Jersey, but I'm going to take a PA board as well. And he's like, well, I got this great idea that you and me and Mark and this other guy that was there as well, we could all partner together and have a great office here. Now, Larry was a good friend of Dr. Pierce. And Pierce, you know, to me was the go-to guy for technique in my day, in my circle. So now I can go work in a Pierce office, because this building was designed by Dr. Pierce. It's 4,800 square foot. 2 stories. The downstairs was where we did our lay lectures and had storage. But upstairs, each side was built, it was a circle. So it was kind of like a pie shape, and we used instrumentation at the time. So there was one instrument on each side. You have to have multiple instruments, and then the patients would get a reading, then they go into this room, this room, this room, this room, and you adjust them and just keep everybody moving. We also, thanks to knowing Dr. Pierce, had one of the first spinal visualizers, a video fluoroscopy unit that was actually out in the field in chiropractic. Now, actually, let me skip over Sig here. Did I miss? I have Dr. Pierce in here somewhere. Anyway, we'll leave it at Sig. So, Dr. Pierce, I don't know how many of you actually got to meet him or have heard him. He was a guy about this tall that spoke as though he was this tall. And he was an old Navy man, used to work in the infirmary. No bedside manner whatsoever. He told the story one time about an overweight young lady that came in to see him, and he says, well, first thing you can do is lose half yourself. No, that's probably not a good way to start. You know, so not the best bedside manner, but he was very to the point. He was somebody that wouldn't mince words. The one time he came in and I was using the video fluoroscopy unit, and he was there to kind of fine tune us. We'd bring him out one day a year to go over problem cases and all. Just a great opportunity. And I was doing something, and I was chewing gum. And I had a habit of slapping on my gum, you know. And he's like, Jeff, come here. I was like, what? He says, he takes me out in the hall. He's like, stop chewing that damn gum. You sound like a fucking cow. You know, it's like, well, okay, Vern, I'm sorry. You know, I didn't mean it. So but he did everything out of love. He was just there to try to help you. He wanted to through the bull, tell you what you needed to do, and make sure that you did it and did it right. So then eventually, after being at Laurel Mountain for a while, I went to a gathering seminar with Sigafus, and I had met Sigafus at the Living Principles seminars for the first time. And those of you who have ever been to a gathering, there's a few of us here, that's kind of like family as well. So I was kind of going that direction for years, and then eventually when SIG passed, I found New Beginnings. I always knew Jim and Babs, and I always kind of was very familiar with the program, but you know, there's so many. There's only so many hours in a day. Holy crap, 5 minutes. Wow, where did that go? So again, what don't you talk about after 30-some years in practice? So after meeting SIG and going to the gathering, it kind of motivated me to get off into my own world and get in my own practice. So I eventually, well, these are just some quick pictures. This is Sharon and Ron Gorman at the very first gathering out on a snowmobile trip. And there's the whole crew, that my buddy Jim Hilston, the Sigafuses, and Ron and Sharon. And of course, the gathering wouldn't be what it is without Dick Santo, Cecil Collins, and as I call them, the big three. So there they are. Oddly enough, at that gathering, that was in Bonnie Springs, Nevada, outside of Las Vegas. And one thing I've always tried to tell people is, look, just because you're sincere about something doesn't make it right, because you can be sincerely wrong. There's a lot of salespeople out there that are very sincere, but the bill of goods they're trying to sell you is way off base. And again, long story very short, I met my first wife at a gathering seminar. I fell in love with the idea of meeting my wife at a gathering seminar, and a year later getting married at a gathering seminar with Cecil Collins as my best man. And it was on the anniversary of the discovery of chiropractic on September 18th. How cool is that? And a year later I was divorced, and the idea turned out to be not so good. So, you know, sometimes you follow what you feel, but you're always meant to learn something from it. So take something from everything, no matter what it does to you. This was my first office on my own. We called it Wack's Chiropractic Center, and that's me outside the door. This is my current office, Nazareth Chiropractic, about a little over an hour from here across the bridge in Pennsylvania. And my snowplow guy, fortunately, actually destroyed part of my original sign last year when he slid his truck around and got into the light box. So I had a new pole cover built, and it looks much nicer, and it stands out a lot better now. So blessings in disguise. This is my family, my wife Wendy, my son Ryan, and my daughter Josie, Gary Stewart, and Bobby Crystal, myself, Dr. Bryn, and my friend Mike Bauer were all skiing out at Blue Mountain the last snowstorm. And Gary will now verify that I do have a wife and children as well. Well, Bobby didn't get to really meet him, I don't think, did you? You met my son. We met my son. So again, you have to be very specific sometimes with your requests too, because my wife said, make sure you don't take Ryan on any Black Diamond trail. So she said Black Diamond. And I have a picture of him standing next to a sign with 2 black diamonds. So, you know, you got to be specific sometimes. But sometimes, you know, there's chaos going on all around you. Even though everybody wants to think that their family is calm and everything's under control, this is the reality of what's going on when you have kids. This is what I put on the back of my card. This is and I'm not even going to pick up the safety pin. You know what a safety pin looks like. Very simple. And Sigafus told me about this years ago, and I just did it because he said do it. So it's been on the back of my business cards ever since I've been making my own business cards. You know, life flows from the brain to the body through the nerves. Misaligned spinal bones interfere with nerves and reduce the flow of life to the body. Chiropractic removes nerve interference and restores 100% life flow to the body. But even though you may have 100% life flow to the body, you occasionally get patients that come in that look like this. Whoop, go back. This lady just came in this week on Wednesday. I hope you all can see that. I didn't know how to make this really stand out. But it's a lumbar spine. The lumbar spine is supposed to curve this way. You don't see reverse curves in a lumbar spine very often. And then the next thing we did was took the lateral. Now look at her lateral. My God, this woman is just wrenched and crooked. And she somehow, I said, I don't know how you walked in my office. I'm glad you did, and I appreciate this opportunity. But these are the kind of things that just give you that appreciation for how much innate can do, how much it can overcome. This woman is functioning somehow and moving around on her own without assistance thanks to innate intelligence.